My name is Andrew. I live in a small town where an old cemetery sits almost at the very edge. Gray, overgrown, forgotten. It used to be a burial ground long before any of us were born. And later, it became the place for those whose families couldn't afford plots at the new cemetery. But about a year ago, I noticed something strange that made this place part of my life. And eventually, part of my nightmares. I often walked there in the evenings. Sounds weird, but the old cemetery was quiet, peaceful. No teenagers, no dogs, no traffic, only the wind. Sometimes it felt too quiet. One winter evening, while walking near the far corner of the cemetery, I saw a grave that definitely wasn't there before. The soil looked fresh, damp, unevenly piled, as if someone had rushed the job. The nameplate was completely blank. Just a metal rectangle with no name or dates. I assumed they were burying homeless people or unidentified remains and hadn't put the plaque up yet. But 2 days later, another fresh grave appeared, and another one the following week, each with a blank nameplate. I told the cemetery's caretaker, an elderly man named Samuel. He waved it off. "Don't worry about it. You're not family. Sometimes certain work gets done around here." He spoke as if he didn't believe his own words. A few days later, I returned and saw there were now 7 fresh graves, all with untouched snow around them. No footprints, no tire tracks, nothing. It was as if the graves appeared overnight without anyone actually digging them. The weirdness got under my skin. I started visiting every day. Sometimes the mounds seemed to shift or settle too quickly, almost unnaturally. One evening I heard a sound, a dull scraping like metal rubbing against stone. It came from the direction of the new graves. I walked closer, slowly. The wind was barely moving, so the sound carried clearly. When I got within a few yards, the noise stopped abruptly. A sharp smell of wet soil hit me, too strong, like I was underground instead of outside. Damp, earthy, suffocating. On one of the fresh graves, the soil looked slightly disturbed. Not like an animal had dug it, more like someone had pushed upward from underneath. I backed away, telling myself it was just wildlife, but deep inside, I knew it wasn't. The next day, the number of fresh graves had grown to 9. I called the cemetery office. They told me no burials had taken place in months. None. I went back to Samuel. He looked pale, exhausted. "Listen," he said. "You need to stop coming here. We had a guy once. Same curiosity as you. He's not around anymore." "Did he move?" I asked. Samuel looked away. "That's one way to put it." A few days later, I returned. There was a 10th grave. Another blank nameplate. But when I bent down to look closer, something made my stomach drop. The smooth metal plate had faint scratches on it. Letters. They looked like they'd been carved by a fingernail or something sharp. It spelled my name. And below it, today's date. I fell to my knees. The plate was ice cold. The letters weren't just scratched. The metal itself was bent outward, as though something had pressed from the inside. Then I heard someone calling my name. Quiet, drawn out, coming from beneath the soil. I ran. I didn't go back. Last night, as I came home, I saw Samuel standing near my apartment building. His face was ghostly white, his lips trembling. "Andrew," he whispered. Another one appeared. A new grave. The nameplate isn't blank anymore. I didn't ask what name was on it. He didn't tell me. He just turned and hurried away, glancing over his shoulder every few steps. Now it's night. I just looked outside my window, and on the small patch of ground in front of my building, someone has piled a mound of fresh, damp soil. Next to it is a metal nameplate, turned directly toward me. I live in an ordinary apartment building on the outskirts of the city, an old place where footsteps echo so loudly it feels like someone is following you. I always blamed it on the age of the building. That is, until I noticed that the sounds started responding. It began in late autumn. I was coming home around midnight. We'd stayed late at work, and the stairwell was dead silent. After closing the entrance door behind me, I took a few steps up the stairs and heard an echo. Normally it lags by a fraction of a second. Hollow floors, old walls. But this time, the echo came too early. As if someone stepped before. I did. I stopped. The sound stopped too. I took another step and heard a second footstep almost in sync with mine, but heavier, duller, like someone bigger was striking the concrete. A chill ran down my spine and I sped up. The echo sped up too. But when I reached my door and put in the key, everything behind me went silent. I forced myself to blame it on fatigue. But a few days later, it happened again. Worse, this time. I had climbed to my floor and decided to check whether a loose step might be causing the strange sound. I stomped my foot deliberately. Immediately, I heard another stomp. Someone mimicking me, but with a 1-second delay. Not an echo, a repetition. And the sound didn't come from beneath my feet. It came from the landing below. As if someone stood there, waiting for me to move first. I leaned over the railing and called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer. But the silence shifted. It felt denser, like someone was holding their breath in the dark. I hurried into my apartment and locked every lock. I barely slept that night. I kept hearing faint footsteps on the landing. A few days passed. One Sunday, I went out to take out the trash. It was around 9 p.m., already dark outside, and for some reason the motion sensor light in the stairwell didn't turn on. It flickered once and died. I walked down the stairs with my phone flashlight, cutting through the concrete gloom. At first, everything sounded normal. Quiet, faint echoes. But halfway down, I heard it again. Double footsteps. My step, and right on its heels, another one, not mine. I froze. The second step froze too. I raised my phone and shined it downward. The landing was empty. Completely empty. Yet the feeling of someone watching me was so strong my skin broke out in goosebumps. Slowly, I took another step. In response, I heard 3 sounds. My own, a natural echo, and a third one. Late. Wrong. Like someone was trying to mimic me, but kept missing the beat. I stood there for a moment, trying to process it. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A step above me. I whipped the phone upward. Nothing. Empty as before. But the steps continued. Like mine, but slightly delayed. Like someone trying to match me and failing. I couldn't stay there anymore. I bolted down the stairs, jumping 2 at a time. The echo turned into a jumble of noise. And within that noise, I heard something unmistakable. Someone was running after me, but not quite in sync. Always a heartbeat behind. Catching up. I burst out onto the first floor and out of the building. When I looked back, the stairwell was pitch black. But the last heavy footstep echoed right at the doorway, as if whoever had been following me stopped just inside the darkness. I stood outside for 10 minutes, shaking, trying to calm down. No one came out. No one went up. The building fell silent again. Since then, I only come home with friends, or get a taxi straight to the entrance. But the most disturbing part happened yesterday. As I climbed the stairs, the footsteps returned, but now they were almost perfectly synchronized with mine. Only half a beat behind. Whoever was echoing me had gotten better at it. And when I reached my floor and stopped at my door, I heard someone stop on the landing below. It wasn't until later, listening to the audio I'd recorded on my phone, that I realized what had changed. The steps didn't sound like echoes or mimicry. They were too close. Like the source wasn't on the landings at all, but right behind me. And something else. When I insert the key into the lock, On the recording, you can clearly hear someone whisper behind me. Hurry up! Then, after a long pause, your floor isn't the last one.